So in the course of the day, I shared some data set and also a PDF. Like we agreed yesterday that we have actually covered enough in SPSS, and maybe we try to do something with whatever we have covered so far. So I therefore thought it wise to maybe come up with a data set so that we can do analysis and maybe try to come up with a report and all that. And because of that, I was actually thinking of using this data set. This is actually a research that was conducted during the pre and the post COVID-19 for university students in UK. So, and actually I had the opportunity to take part in the analysis of this data set. So it's actually one of a practical data set and one of the projects that at one point I was involved. So I thought, why not? We can try to do something on this data set. And as you can see, it's a large data set because in statistics we say the data set is large once we have a sample size greater than 30. And you can see we have 675 observations, roughly. So because of the complexity and the purpose of academic, or rather let's say for classwork, I shared a PDF that has some structured questions so that they can guide us in the process of doing our analysis. Now, this is the PDF, and this is a quantitative analysis. Actually, this study had two parts. We had the quantitative analysis and the qualitative analysis. For those who are doing in vivo, maybe I'll consider giving them part of this, the qualitative part. Now, normally, before you even rush to doing the analysis, you need to understand first the variables that you are dealing with. So, for those at one point will be working remotely, maybe you are employed as a junior analyst, maybe in a company outside Kenya, and is sending you some data set to do the analysis. Most of the cases, what they'll do, actually they will always do this, they'll send you what we call data documentation. If that data was coded, or that data is coded to some extent, or even if that data set is not coded, but they'll give you some data documentation so that you can understand your variables. That is the first thing. And maybe they'll also give you the objectives. So based on the variables and the objectives, yours will just to determine the test statistics. So that day, this is what was provided as the documentation. I've tried to structure it. You can see I even have our log here and all that. But this is what was provided for the documentation, the characteristic variable, so that you can actually understand what do the variables represent. This is what we call data documentation. You understand each and every variable. So if there is any categorical variable, you understand what each category or other level represent. Now, because of this class, I have actually tried to structure some questions that can guide us in doing our analysis. And you'll realize it will focus on what we have been discussing throughout the SPSS session. Now you can see there's an instruction and saying your task is to analyze the data and produce a short report or other research report that is about 1,500 words to describe the impact of COVID-19 on college students' life. So this is like the objective, the impact of COVID-19 on the university students' life. Now this is a qualitative research, so we're expecting to have the quantitative, it's a quantitative research, and it will also have qualitative research as well, or rather qualitative part. But now for this class, we are focusing on quantitative. Now, we have been given the quantitative data set, the one I've shared on SPSS. Actually, that time it was shared as an Excel file. And we have this data information. So it is very important to read between the lines here so that now you can get an understanding of the variables and what they represent. Getting to understand the variables and the objectives will now help us determine the type of statistics or other analysis we'll be doing. So they're saying a social economic survey has been designed in the UK in order to find out the influence of COVID-19 on mental health and finance situation of university students. A subset of the dataset, including 675 students, these are now the number of observations, and 19 variables has been selected in SPSS dataset, the one now that I have shared. Some variables have been measured before and after COVID-19. Very important to understand that. There are some variables were measured before and also after COVID-19. Now your task. Now these are the questions I've structured so that they can help us in doing our analysis. So, okay, our task is A. You need to define the value labels for the qualitative or the categorical variable according to table 1. So those categorical variables in this table, we have them actually defined. You can see we have gender and represents the gender of the participants. So gender is coded as male is represented as 2 and female as 1. So we need to do the data coding. That is our first task. That is A. Now after we are done with the coding, 2, we are supposed to do a descriptive statistics. As always, we start with the descriptive statistics or rather descriptive analysis. And in the descriptive statistics, we actually have some guidelines that describe the features of these participants briefly by using descriptives including appropriate statistics measures or other measurements such as the mean, the standard deviation, the percentages. See, these are for categorical and these are for continuous. So we're expected to have tables and graphs. In this part, you just need to describe. So we even have some variables that we need to describe. The age, the BMI, the bag and all that. All those variables, not all of them actually. So the age, BMI, gender, health condition, that is level of study, marital status, wealth background and economic status. Then after that, still under part of descriptive analysis, we explore at least 2 quantitative variables by categorical variable with reasonable explanation. So in this case, we'll be having 2 continuous variables. We're exploring them by now with categorical variable in reference to categorical variable. And why do we choose such variables? That is what they're saying with an explanation why or rather reason. Now 3, we're also supposed to demonstrate at least 1 cross table using categorical variable, compute the rows and the column and the total percentage and describe this percentage. So again here we are doing a cross table of now a continuous variable and a categorical variable. Actually, for cross table, in most of the cases, we'll be dealing with categorical variable. So we'll see that as well. Now, there's a note here they're saying your tables should be concise and clear, and you need to explain them properly. You can support your explanation by the statistical measure and graphs in reasonable way. So that is what we need to make everything clear. So after we have done that, we are done with the descriptive analysis. Now we go to inferential analysis. Now inferential statistics here, 1, you need to list 5 claims. These are now hypotheses. Based on that data, we define 5 claims or other hypotheses and test these hypotheses by appropriate statistic tests and techniques. So, one, we define the claims. After we have defined the claims, we now test these hypotheses, or rather the claims, by the appropriate statistics and techniques. So, you need to ask yourself, which claim am I formulating based on this data set? And which test statistics is right to test this particular claim? Now, in your technique, or rather those statistical tests are required to include, we are limited to some inferential statistics, that is, or rather inferential analysis. And one of them is the famous t-test we are doing yesterday. So we can do 1 or 2 sample t-tests, or non-parametric test, or paired t-test. So we did this, and we did t-test generally. Now you can see here there is an aspect of non-parametric tests. Yesterday, as we were discussing about t-test, and more so the independent sample t-test, I was telling you that there is an assumption, or other assumptions that need to hold. Like one of them that we really stressed is the homogeneity of variance, which is tested by Levin test. We talked about that yesterday. Now, another assumption that we were talking about is normal distribution, that the dependent variable must be normal distributed. Now, if that dependent variable is not normal distributed, or rather the normal assumption does not hold, the normality assumption does not hold, then we go with the non-parametric tests. So basically, non-parametric tests are just corresponding. Okay, these t-tests, the ANOVA tests, and all that are called parametric tests because they follow normal distribution. Now, if they do not follow normal distribution, we do what we call non-parametric tests. Now, the fact is that every parametric test has a corresponding non-parametric test. So t-test has a corresponding non-parametric test, the paired t-test and all that. So if that assumption does not hold, then we are allowed to go the non-parametric way. So 2, we can also use what we call the one-way ANOVA, the F-test and all that, or its corresponding non-parametric. We are also supposed to find association between variables by using maybe chi-square test or regression analysis. So we can use any of them depending with our thoughts, like we have checked the variables and we see that that is what is supposed to be done. Now, this is what we call the data documentation. This is what we call the data documentation. Now, under the data documentation, we have characteristic variables. So basically, we have the variables themselves, a description, the SPSS variable name, and the quantity or other labels of the levels or the groupings. And if it's continuous, then we have the quantity, maybe in terms of units of measurement. Now, this is one of the most important parts because you need to know what the data really represent. And this information actually needs to be filled in SPSS. Like here, our first task is you need to define value labels. You can see value labels for qualitative or categorical variable. As well, you can see this description. We can have this description. Remember when I was introducing SPSS, I was saying under the variable view, we have what we call the labels here. They basically describe the data. They basically describe the data like that. So you can also add that, the description. But most important is to take note of the categorical variable like gender, males and females, eye color, brown, blue, and all that, and blood group, AB, and the code. It is very important. It is very important. Again, the unit of measurement for the continuous variable. Remember, when you are doing interpretation in regression, I don't want to hear people saying a unit increase, a unit of what? Maybe it's a kg. So a kg increment or that. I want to see that you really understand the data documentation. So some variables were also not captured on this table, but they were further explained here. And see, we have the variable that has been measured and gathered before and after COVID-19. So we have the certification with life scale. So we are measuring the certification using a life scale. So this consists of items and they were listed. So we were using what we call the linkage scale. That is strongly agree to strongly disagree. And we were getting those measurements. So it is represented in the SPSS. We have certification before COVID-19 and certification after COVID-19. Very important. We have also mental distress, which was also measured, and it was measured before and after the mental distress. You can see what is being presented in SPSS. You'll find it this way. So this is what you'll see in SPSS. Very important to check on the data description. So we have also our hospital anxiety and depression scale before and after. Also we have the credit score before and after. So a credit score is a number designed to represent the likelihood you will pay your bills on time. Higher credit score generally results in more favorable credit terms, scoring 1 to 710. So it is very important to read this documentation to know what each and every variable represent. So at the end of the day, okay, I said this research also had a qualitative part. That is why it is also there. Once you have summarized your findings in part B and part C, you should wrap up your report with a conclusion that shows how students' lives has been affected by COVID-19. Of course, we need to have that conclusion. And this conclusion has to be from the evidence of your previous analysis. That is in part 1 and part 2. That is now on the under this. You need to have part B and part C is what will bring us to conclusion. So without further ado, let's just go to number 1, where we are told you need to define your value for categorical variable. So we'll go to our SPSS and now fill this information here before we go ahead and do the analysis. Very important. So on your SPSS, I shared the data set and I'm expecting each one of us to have the data set. If you don't, you can kindly text me on WhatsApp so that I can share the data set with you. Yeah. So you open the data set. By now I know you know how to open the data set. So we go to variable view. We go to variable view because it is on the variable view where now we will be defining our categories and all that. Now we will not fill for labels because of time, but you can do that at your own free time. So I'm looking at age. Is age categorical or continuous? Do I need to define the values if it is categorical? Yes, you do. But the question is age categorical or continuous? Now, you discover that in most of the cases, people have tendency of saying age is continuous. No. You don't need to assume. You actually have to confirm, because I remember when we were introducing this, I don't know if it's Advanced Excel or SPSS, we were saying that age, we have two types of categories, or other categorical variables. We have what we call the natural category and the artificial categories. So natural categories are like gender, we have male or female. Now, artificial categories, where now the researcher decides to measure a certain quantitative variable now to qualitative variable or categorical, to categorical, that is. Like I can decide and say I'll record the age such that if you are between below 18 years, then you present it as 1. Now between 19 and let's say 36, there is 1 recording. Now between 37 and maybe 52, there is another category. So we are creating categories even though age in most of the cases is continuous in nature. So you don't have to assume. You come to the documentation and you can see age was measured in years, and there is no any place here they are saying it's categorical. So we can see age is not categorical. So we go to the next variable and see the next one is weight. Weight is continuous, or rather you can check from here and then go do there. So we can see gender is categorical and male is coded as 2 and female 1. So we'll go to our SPSS. For gender, we go to our SPSS, and now for gender here, we will have to have our labels. So 1, okay, something is not working from an end, but here we go. So 1 represents female, and 2 represents male. So we have, now that is clear, we have coded that. Now we go to the other one, we go to the other and check. We actually have eye color. We actually have eye color. Now we need to check for eye color. It's actually categorical. So we need to define that. We need to define those categories. So 1 is for blue and 2 is for brown and all that. So we will go to our SPSS. We'll go to our SPSS here, and we have our eye color. So our under eye color, we will say that 1 represents a blue, 1 represents a blue, and 2 represents brown, and 3 represents hazel. That is 3, and we have another category 4, which represents green, is it green or something? And we click OK, Now we check for any other categorical variable. We have health condition: 1 health, 2 chronic, and 3 disabled. So we go and code that. That is health condition. Health condition is here. So we need to code health condition. Did I skip one? So we have blood group. Before that, we even have blood group here. Let's go systematic. I can see here we have blood group. So blood group, we have 1 to represent blood group A, 2 to represent blood group B, and 3 to represent blood group AB, and lastly we have 4 to represent blood group O. So those are the categories. Then we go to health condition. You see, data documentation is also important, and also coding is not a joke. So 1 is for health, is for healthy. Then we have 2 for chronic, and we have 3 for disabled. I think it was disabled. and we have it that way. That is the three categories. Now we go to level of study. Is also categorical. So we have 1 for undergraduate, or rather undergrad. It's undergrad. Let's just see undergrad. Then we have 2 for postgrads. So I'll just write postgrad, and we are done with that. Then of course we have the marital status. We have 1 for single. We have 1 for single. Then we have 2 for married, of course. Married, us now. And we are done with that. Then we have wealth, wealth background. Now for wealth background, we have 1 to represent yes, I'm from a wealth background, and 2 we have no, I'm not from a wealth background, and we have it. Now lastly, we have economic status as also a categorical variable. So we have actually 1 to represent low. We have 2 to represent medium. That is the medium class. And we have 3 to represent high. To represent high. Like that. Don't bother about the spellings if there's any spelling mistake. So we are done with coding our data. We are done with coding our data, and we have it. So what's next? We can go ahead and do our analysis. We can go ahead and do our analysis, having coded the data. We can go ahead and do our analysis. And I want us to, and one thing you need to take note is that your data set is not saved. So just save your data so that in case of anything, you actually have coded your data and it's saved. So, having saved the data, I can even navigate here on the value labels and see, oh yeah, my data is now coded nicely, and I'm ready to do my analysis. So, what's next? I hope guys we are all able to code our data. If you are done coding your data, kindly type 1. If you have a challenge, please type a 0 so that we be on the same page. So if you are done, kindly type 1. If you have any question, kindly raise your hand. If you are done typing, coding, yes, I see we have Elvis, Lawrence Munga. We have only 2. Esther is also good to go. So we have 3. If you are done coding your data, kindly type 1. If not, kindly type 0. If you have any question, kindly raise up your hand. Joseph is saying he's not done coding the data. We are giving you 1 minute to do that. We are giving you 1 minute to do that, Joseph. So, as we wait for Joseph to finish coding the data, we can go back on our guideline here, and actually it was, you need to find value labels, to define value labels according to table, like what we have been doing. And now we go to the descriptive statistics. Now we are told describe the features of these participants briefly using descriptive statistics, including appropriate statistical measures such as mean and standard deviation, percentages. We need to include tables and graphics graphs in this part. You also need to just describe age, BMI, gender, the condition, level of study, marital status, wealth background, and economic as such. Now, this is a descriptive analysis that we have been doing all along, and I'm not expecting this to be a challenge to any one of us. So before we even go ahead to answer this question and do the descriptive analysis, what I normally do, I ask myself some questions on this data set so that I can take my time to try to understand the data set and all that. Like, one thing is to understand the variables, very important. So we first explore the data set to check the nature of the variable, like what we have been doing, to see if they are quantitative or categorical, trying to classify them. Now, after you have classified them, now you go ahead, like what we have been doing or rather defining the value labels accordingly. Again, how many variables are in this data set? Just for curiosity, you can see we have 19 variables. And the number of observation, we're actually checking and we were seeing there are 675 observation. So, if I'm to classify my variables into qualitative and categorical, rather into qualitative and quantitative, what are those variables? There are qualitative and quantitative. There is another aspect that you need to know. So from here you can even easily list the qualitative variables and the quantitative, because all these are continuous variables. Now again here we have another bunch of continuous variables, these three. So we have those three and these other ones here down. And now we have this bunch here of categorical variables. And why am I saying that? Because we have just coded them, the value labels, to represent the various categories. So you will, in your analysis, you must always tell us what one represents and what two represents. And actually, the reason as to why we had to code that, suppose you just know that and you write a clear explanation, you do a proper interpretation, but realize if you are not, defining those levels, you realize your analysis will have 1 and 2 in those tables, and someone will never understand what they really represent. That is why it is important to do this. Now let's go for the descriptive analysis. Now from here, I can see that because he's mentioning about the mean and the standard deviation, and then he's also mentioning about the percentages. Meaning this one is for, of course, this one is for frequencies, and this is now for categorical variable. The mean and the standard deviation will only make meaning for continuous variable. So I'll go for continuous variable for this. Now from this list again, I can actually group them into 2 so that I can only do this twice. I try to ask myself, what are those continuous variables? You see I have age, BMI, only these are continuous actually, the age and the BMI. For this case, the ones that we have been told to explore under descriptive analysis. Now the other one, the rest, that is health, condition, level, are categorical. So I can actually do one for all the continuous and one for all the categorical. So I'll go to analyze. Now here you have multiple options. Remember that we have the frequency approach, the descriptive approach, and the explore approach. We said that we discussed about that, and we said that the frequency can actually do for both categorical and continuous. But now for continuous, we'll uncheck the frequency table. Now descriptives will only do for continuous variable. So let's start doing for the continuous variable. I'll do descriptives for the continuous variable. So in that case, we need to include age. We also are instructed to include, what was the other variable? I really don't remember.
BMI.
We were to do age. Okay, we were to do age, BMI, age and BMI. They are the ones that are continuous in this case. So I'll just check what is BMI represented. What is BMI from the documentation? BMI. Can someone check for BMI from the document? Okay, we have age, weight, we have height, gender, eye color, blood. Okay, I'm not seeing BMI here. Is someone seeing BMI from his end? Okay, this is satisfaction with life. And then we have mental distress. Anxiety. And then we have the credit. Okay, I'm not seeing BMI in this context, but it's still okay. We have age. Let's just do for age. And I click OK. Of course, the other options, we just leave everything as default because they were really insisting on the mean and the standard deviation, the maximum and also the minimum. Now, the disadvantage of doing descriptive analysis is that we are not actually getting a plot, and we talked about this. And when you look at our guideline here, it is actually asking us to come up with graphics as well. So you see they're telling us to come up with, to include tables and graphs. So we need to have a graph for this as well. And because it is continuous in nature, then maybe a histogram can do. So you can actually go ahead and under graphics here and try to build one. And try to build a histogram. See, we have a histogram here. You can go ahead and build one for age. You can put a title and all that, and then you build that histogram for the variable age. Now that is now using descriptive analysis. It will not give you a graph. But however, if I didn't have that time again to go maybe and build the chart and all that, I would have actually go using the frequency approach. Because from the frequency approach, I can basically go ahead and disable the frequencies and then get a graph. Automatically it will give me a graph. Now one thing I remember about this research is that, or this study, they wanted all their graphs to be green in color. Green, or for categorical, maybe a green and red and all that. So let's actually have that color here. This will also help us to know how to edit our graphs, which we talked about. So basically, you come to that graph and you see this frame changes color, and you double tap that graph, so it will open this window. Now this chart editor window is where now you can do some editing, and I can actually maximize this. So when I click on these bars of the charts here, these bars, they'll open another window. You can see we have what we call field border, the binding, the chart size, field borders, chart size, and all that. So we only need to change color. So I'll select my desired color. Let's say this one, and I say apply, and I observe that is the color they want. So I'll close that, and when I close, I'll just close this editor, and you have your graph changing its color. So now I have my edge. We are actually to put a title. I hope you see the dialog saying you can insert a title here, which I did. So I have a graph for my edge and the bar. So you know what I'll do? I'll have a title there, Descriptive Statistics. And maybe one statement saying a descriptive statistics was conducted to explore the variables and to understand about the data set in general, about the variables there is. So I'll have my first variable as edge. Now, of course, you need to tell us. Now, you see, you are now doing the documentation. You're not doing the documentation. You're not doing the report. So after having edge, maybe I'll say, was edge measured as continuous or categorical? Don't just assume that it is always continuous. So maybe I'll have this statement and say, edge is a continuous variable which was used to represent the age of the respondents in years. For this continuous variable, a summary statistics was conducted to include the mean, the standard deviation, the minimum, and the maximum using SPSS, and the results are as shown on the table below. Then you put that table down there. Then after that table, now you give now the interpretation. Now you storytell, like Mr. Morrison is putting it. Now you storytell. And I'm not expecting to do this storytelling here because it's something that we have been doing all along. But I'll just do it because of time. But as we continue, guys will be doing it. So I'll just say maybe, as observed from the descriptive statistics table above, the average age of the participants was 26.23 years, or rather was 26 years, with the highest respondent at 39 years old. I mean with the oldest, not highest. Is it oldest? Is that English? Okay, and the youngest at 20 years old. The range of the age of the participant was 19. Now you see the range is the difference in age of the highest and the lowest, the youngest and the oldest. Okay, the young and the old is 19. And the age of the respondents varied from the average by 3 years. This observation is further illustrated by the graph below. And you have now your chart down there. You have actually talked about everything as far as age is concerned. You see? Because this chart basically is showing, you see here we have the mean, the standard deviation as well, and the number of observations. Now again from this chart, you can make some conclusion. Look at this chart. When I look at this chart, from here to here, trying to understand the bars, from here to here is 15, meaning I have small bars here each. Okay, maybe 5 or something and all that. So I'm trying to understand the scale. And maybe one question I can ask myself, where the majority of the participants, falling in terms of age. And you can see, maybe it is from here. You see, this represents the frequency. Now those who are between maybe 19 and 21, their frequency is somewhere here. So you see they're about 20. That is the frequency, the number. Now from here, you can make some observation and try to ask yourself, where do the majority lie? Where do the majority lie? And I can tell that this one here is where the majority lie to this, maybe to this. See? Where is where now the majority lie. So I can say clearly from the graph, it can also be observed that majority of the respondents, or rather the participants, were of the age between 23 and 29 years. Were of the age between 23 and 29 years. And you're done with that. And you're done with your age. So I will not do all for the continuous variable. That will be your assignment as well. So I go to now to one categorical variable. Maybe we do for gender. But now because I know all the categorical variable, we can even try to do for all. So I'll go to descriptives and then I say frequency. And then I say frequency. But now you see it will generate for one big and it will be not good. So I'll say gender. I'll say gender, and of course I want the frequency table. So I go to statistics. You know, these are the means, they don't make any sense and all that. So you continue. Now you go to chart option. Now you need to have a chart because they said they need a chart. So it's you to decide if you'll have a bar chart or a pie chart. But histogram does not make sense. Histogram is for continuous. So I'll say bar chart. So do you want the bar charts to represent the frequencies or the percentages? Okay, let it present the frequencies. And I'll click OK. Now I click OK, and here I have gender. Here I have gender. Now of course now we need to edit our chart. So I'll just right click that. And then click to open the chart builder. The properties, and change the color. Now you see there are two bars. So I can click one at a time. I've clicked the first one. Maybe I give it the green color. I say apply. And now let me present this with a different color. Maybe a red one. You know, red is one of my favorite colors. Okay, let it just be that. Apply. So that we can have them distinguished. So once I close this, my charts are changing. The chart is changing. Now the beauty of doing your coding is that you see here it is saying males and here it is saying females. If you didn't code your data, we could have 1 here and 2 here. So someone is really struggling and asking, what is this chart representing? What is this 1 and 2 representing? And you see, people are lazy, they don't want to ask themselves questions. So this is the variable gender. Actually, I want this class to be very interactive. As interactive as possible. So someone to tell us something about gender, to storytelling, like Mr. Morrison is putting it. Gender. Someone to say something about gender. Someone to say something about gender. Come on, guys. Someone to say something about gender.
You can try.
Yes, someone's hand is up. Yes, Opio. Eric Opio.
Ali, first of all, I wanted to ask question, but it's fine. Let me try. Yeah.
No. Just ask the question first.
Let me now speak.
Okay. Hold on, Opio. Just a minute. Something is wrong from my end. Just a minute and then proceed. Yes, now you can proceed.
For instance, let's say we were having gender in terms of performance. For instance, now this is how I'm going to explain. According to the chart that has been provided, we observe that female scored highest, let's say marks, highest, followed by male, who became the second. Or
now, Opio, kindly, just allow me to interrupt you. Like, you see, this is data from real research, and this research was done and the data was collected. That was why we were reading the documentation. So it is very clear that, what the data represents. So, okay, you're doing the right thing, the very right explanation, but now bringing the aspect of performance doesn't really make sense in this aspect, because we're trying to do a real research and coming up with a table, a report. So we are leaving those assumptions aside of what the data represent and deal with the documentation. Maybe to just help you, when you look at the documentation, they're saying gender, the gender of the participants. It's very clear, the gender of the participants. And the gender for the male was coded 2 and female was coded 1. So basically, the gender represents the participants. And I want you to do your storytelling in that aspect, kindly.
Thank you once again. Let me now paraphrase according to the research that has been provided. This is how we are going to say, according to the chart that has been provided, we observe that female participated in larger number than male, and we can say the female number is approximately 400, while the male number is approximately 300. That it is back to you, Ali.
Okay, thank you, Opio, for that awesome attempt. Now, this is very clear, the gender. So in doing that report, I'll have my second variable as gender. You first describe your variable, of course. So I'll say, this is a categorical variable that was used to represent the gender of the participants, where 1 was the code, or where female was coded as 1 and male was coded as 2. The descriptive analysis of this variable is as represented below. Now we put this table, and I'll say it is clear from this frequency table that majority of the participants, that is, now this is your saying, majority of the participants, 392, in bracket 58.1%, were females, and the remaining 283, in bracket 41.9%, were males. This is represented by the bar graph below. And you are done. So it is very clear that the female are majority, and you're putting it clear as it should. So that is gender. That is one of the categorical variable. That is one of the categorical variable. So you can do the rest for your assignment so that we don't spend a lot of time here. You can do the frequency. Now we have gender. You'll do the rest. That is blood group. We also have the economic status. We have the eye color. Of course, we are done with gender. You need to do the health condition, the level of education, the marital status, and the wealth background. See, I don't know if they were all listed there, but you will do them. So the beauty of doing one by one is that you'll have a room to change. Maybe at one point have a pie chart that represents the percentages, and some other point I have bars that represent the frequencies. It's up to you. So you will do that. I've just tried to do all of them so that we can have the frequency tables. And yes, here they are. We have the frequency table. We also have the charts for all. So mine is just to edit and do the interpretation. That is not the beauty. But the problem of doing all of them is that we have the same chart. And maybe at one point I was thinking of having a pie chart. So just to get one of you to say something about health condition or blood group here. Someone, a volunteer, to say something about blood group. And also, just to mention, I'm not monitoring the meeting as such, so that when you raise your hand and you find out that I'm not picking you to answer the question, just speak out and I'll pause so that I give you time. So it's trying blood group. Say something about blood group. Okay, seems like you guys are not ready, but I bet you'll do the report. Yes, someone.
Can I try again?
No, we want a different person. These guys should also try. Or guys are asleep, huh? People could be sleeping. Anyway, I assume you are all the same page. So now we go to the next task that we are done with this descriptive analysis. Now looking at the next task on this guide is to actually do what we call explore at least two quantitative variable by categorical variable and give a reasonable explanation. Now you realize one thing that should come up in your mind is the objective. Look at the objective. Somewhere it was being mentioned there. I was saying this was the objective. We are a social economic survey to find out the influence of COVID-19 on mental health and financial situation of the students. Now I can decide and say there was one variable that was used to measure the student credit score down here. we have that variable. Let's just check. Satisfaction of life, mental distress, we have credit score. We have credit score here. And it's saying a credit score is the number designed to represent the likelihood you will pay your bills on time. A high credit score generally results to more favorable credit terms. So this one is measuring if you are able to pay your bills or not. Tunasema if you can pay for a meal or utainama. So at one point I was thinking, what if this credit score could be related to economic status? On this table, we are having what we call economic status. Maybe if you are coming from a high economic status, or maybe the medium, you'll be able now to pay as compared to when you are coming from low. So economic status being a categorical variable and credit score being a continuous variable, I can now go ahead and explore them. So there is one reason that can actually help us to understand what is happening in the data set. So we will go to our SPSS here. Now we go to analyze. Then we go to descriptive analysis and we say explore. So we are exploring what? The credit score. This is the credit score. And we can actually, what we'll do, we can explore the credit score before and after COVID-19. Let's explore credit score and after COVID-19, because that is the most important. If we see there is any significant effect. So the dependent variable is the credit score. We are assuming it is depending on the economic status. So we have the statistics, if you need to include the statistics, and that is the 95% confidence level, which is okay. Now for plots, we have the stem and leaf, but no, let's not do the stem and leaf. Instead, let's do histogram. Now box plot is saying factor levels together, or depends together or none. Factor together is actually the best. Normality plots, no, that is not important. And I click continue. Now there are options here. You can check or include, rather exclude cases, likewise or pairwise. We'll be talking about that. Now the beauty as to why I like explore as a method of descriptive analysis is that it will always give a box plot. That is the beauty. And actually this time, it will not only give me a box plot for this dependent variable to see if there's any anomaly, normal observations, that is observations that are extremely high or extremely low, but it will give them based on these categories. So when I click OK, and I give my SPSS some time, it will generate this output. Now you can see the case summaries, the low. Now this is not that important because it's valid and missing values. But we talked about this descriptive, the 5% mean and all that. But now it is being given in terms of categories. You see we have low, medium, and high. That is the beauty now. But I cannot actually have that entire table in my analysis. Actually doesn't even look nice. But now look at these charts. Look at these nice charts. And more so, this one, the box plot. The box plot. Now, the charts also represents the credit score. That is the ability to pay bills based on the frequency. Like this one is for the medium class. This one here is for the low. And you can see that for the low, how it is distributed. Actually for the low, we have some that can actually pay. You can see here. But we have those that are also at the extreme end here. So it's fairly skewed there. But no, it is towards the right to some extent. Now we also have the medium. You can see the medium. Those are able to pay the bills in terms of credit score and all that. And most importantly and interesting is the box plot. Because the box plot actually is showing the credit score based on the three categories. The low, the medium and the high. And I can tell that for those that are low, for the low economic status, those students that belong to the low economic status, we actually have a number of them that are extremely, their credit score is extremely very low, that they are not able to pay, like they are outliers. Their ability is very, very low, abnormally low, because of these outliers. And also, what is interesting is that in both classes, we have those that are kind of abnormal high, even though these are not serious outliers because they are not static. But it's interesting that in both cases we have outliers at the top. Now we don't have those that are abnormal low for high and medium, meaning even though there are some that are paying, maybe the ability is low, but we don't have any case that is abnormal low. But now for the low economic status, we have a case that we can at least say it's abnormal low. It's abnormal low. So that is very important and we need to mention that in our analysis. So what I'll do, of course you will have to edit this chart to the desired color. You have it. Now I'll arrange these three charts also so that they are just somewhere there and we do the analysis, the interpretation. So for that case, you see I always start with a story and I'll say from the list of variables, I decided to explore the numerical variable by categories, and in this case it's the student score by economic status. Now I said you need first to say, or rather you need to tell us what is credit score maybe, and maybe the economic status. It is also important to mention that. So to explore the student's likelihood to pay the bill as per their current economic status. Remember they are saying this is current economic status. An exploratory analysis statistics was conducted on the student credit score after COVID-19 and the current economic status of the student. The result is as shown. So I'll have this chart and these three charts aligned together, because you know you can, in your Word document, you can minimize this here so that you fit the other one here and the other one, just small charts. So then I'll go ahead now and do my storytelling based on those charts and such. And most importantly is on the box plot. So I can say from the output, it can observe that the participants of, but of course there's the table, don't forget, and also the bars. So you can actually mention anything about them. So maybe let me just look at the bars and also together with the chart so that I can have a nice story to tell. Yeah, one interesting thing is the mean. Look at the mean here for the various classes. Very important to compare this actually. We have the mean here for those that are in low. We have the mean for those that are in medium. We have the mean for those that are in high. Quite interesting that those in high, their average is lower than those in low. So you see, those are some aspects that you need to also to mention. So I can say that from the output, it can be observed that the participants from the low economic status category have an average credit score of this, and those from medium economic status, the mean is this, and those from high, the mean is that. That is also important to mention. Now, it can also be observed that the low economic status category had some outliers below the extreme end, unlike the median, class, and the upper status, economic status. It can also be observed that the low economic status category had outliers below the extreme, unlike now the median and the upper economic status categories, which had only outliers above the upper extremes. So what do you say? You can say that this could suggest that a credit score of low economic, this could suggest that there is a low credit score on the low economic status. This one, from this, that the fact that we have some outliers here and we don't have here. Again, look at the means. These ones are high. So based on this, it can be suggested that the low economic status, or rather there is low credit score on the low economic status category. Remember, the word I'm using is it suggests, it can suggest that. We're not saying there is a low credit score, but it is suggesting. You see, those are some of insights you are developing that now when you go to inferential analysis, now you test them and make a conclusion. So then you don't make a conclusion here. No, it's just a suggestion. It's just a suggestion. So that is one way of doing it. You can explore the credit score and marital status. On economic status. Another one, because they were saying two, we are not going to do the second one because of time, but maybe just looking at the data set for categorical and the continuous variable. Because to explore now, we need to explore, they said we explore a continuous variable based on a categorical variable. Now, other one that is quite interesting and that can actually suggest something, is look at the health condition. We have health condition here as categorical, with categories healthy, chronic, and disabled. Again, at one point here, we were seeing another variable known as hospital anxiety and depression. What if there could be a relationship or other association or something between the health condition and hospital anxiety and depression? Because why should you be depressed when you are not sick? Maybe when you are healthy. even though at times depression is rare, they say. But I'm looking at it in that perspective. So maybe we can decide to explore, actually we can explore anxiety here and depression to see if there is any likely of the two suggesting something. So I'm giving you a hint on the second. So I'll come to analyze here, and then I'll go to descriptive, and then I say explore variables. Now I'm not doing these two. I'm now looking at anxiety. Now, how did anxiety be measured? I think with this one. Let's look at the documentation saying anxiety, hospital anxiety. Yeah, A and X before and after COVID-19. So you can decide to do any, but most importantly, maybe after COVID-19. And now the health condition. So I click OK, the rest remains yes as it is. So let's observe. See the mean of healthy people, the anxiety, the average anxiety is that. For chronic is also that, and disabled is that. So it's actually high for the health. Okay, quite interesting. You can also see the mean, how it is distributed in terms of and all that. And you can also, quite interesting. Look at this. There's a lot to tell here. Look at the anxiety and the health condition. Now look for the healthy. The median is very low, meaning we have majority, suggesting majority. The anxiety is very high. Now look at this. Now look at this one. There are some people whose anxiety is abnormal high for the disabled. You see? So those are quite interesting insights that maybe you need to mention. So that is that. You can explore as more variables as possible. You can also try to come up with that report. So that is part of the assignment. I want to see what you guys will say on that. I want to see how you guys will put it in your own words, borrowing from what I've just said. Now, another thing you can decide to explore, maybe we had student credit score. That is the ability to pay bills. And maybe, okay, we're doing with wealth background. No, we're doing with economic status. Now, you can decide to do with wealth background as well, away from economic status. So that is that. I think that is clear. Any question, maybe? Any point that is not clear? Do you guys understand anything, what I'm doing here? Because I'm just seeing people leaving the meeting and joining. I don't really know if you guys understand. Guys, are we doing something? Yes, Elvis.
A question on about the box plot for the health condition and anxiety. What about for the stars up there at the disabled for the 5, 6?
This one's here. Now, Elvis.
52 and 586. What do they mean?
When we were doing our descriptive analysis, I remember mentioning this, that we have two outliers. And at one point, Elvis, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
That confirms that the rest can hear me as well. Now, I was saying, when we were introducing SPSS and descriptive analysis, I remember I mentioned about this, Elvis. And I was saying that there are basically two kinds of outlier. We were saying there are those outliers. Okay, actually, it starts to be said to be an outlier when it is above 1.5 of the upper inner fence. Here is the fence we are talking about up here. So if it is above 1.5 but less than 3, it's above, assuming this is above 1.5 already here. But now, from here, the inner fence to this point is 3. So within this, above 1.5 and below 3, those are outliers, and they'll be indicated with these circles. They are not serious outliers, so to speak. But now, those that above 3, they will be considered as serious outliers, and you can see SPSS is representing them with asterisk. They are abnormal high and high. They are serious outliers from that case, if I may say. And I remember saying this. And I even remember saying, I like using SPSS in search, even though I can, okay, I know some of us in the same class here in R, we can command it to distinguish that as well. But unlike SPSS, where, Excel, where all outliers will be just like that. But of course, we can do that in macros as well. Okay. So, these are considered to be serious outliers, unlike this. And I was saying that this number here represents the number of observation. So if we go to 562, you'll see it to be very high than 442. And we can even see that because this is anxiety after. So let's go to anxiety after and try to see that. It is this one here. So we are looking at 442. The 442 observation. Here it is. This one here. For anxiety, you can see for anxiety it's 12. And you see it's ranging 4, 3, 10. See, but we have 17. So if 12 is an outlier, then 17 should also be an outlier. That is 434 should also be an outlier. So let's look at that. When I come back here, I have 442, I have 468, 434. Now you see not a problem actually, but is it found in disabled, chronic, or healthy? But wherever it is, it will be an outlier. You can see 437, but it's still not serious an outlier. Now let's look at 562. One thing I'm sure about is it is greater than 17, because if 17 is considered not to be a serious outlier, then this one should be greater than 17. So let's go and check that at 562. So I'll go. You see, inspection is also important. So 562. I think it is 562. So 562 is this observation. So let's look at exact after. See, it is 21. Abnormal high from the likes of 5, 3, and also let's look at the mean of the anxiety. We are looking at the mean of the anxiety of the disabled. The mean is 5 and it's at 21. So you can see why it is having a star, a serious outlier. Elvis, am I answering your question? Yeah. So there's a way of dealing with these outliers, because at times they affect your data, and most importantly they affect the skewness of the data. That is it, the distribution of the data in most of the cases. Because it is like the scenario I was giving yesterday. Someone is scoring 20, the other one is scoring 100, and the other one is scoring 10 or 30, let's say. So the average is 50. Can we say that they are performing well? No, we can't. So that abnormal high observation, if we remove 100 and we remain with these two, that is 30 and 20, we are getting an average of 25. Now this actually tells us something that is closer to the fact. The average of 25, and we have two, one is 30 and the other one is 20. You see, it is closer to the fact. But now 100. So you see, the only possible way to make a proper inferential analysis or a conclusion is to remove this outlier. Are you seeing that? And here now I'm giving you one approach of dealing with outliers. They can be excluded from the analysis. There is one method. The other method is that we can replace the outliers, the serious outliers now, maybe with the average. You see, that is another approach. Those who are taking R programming, that is what we'll do. That is what we'll do. And just to be honest, I don't know. Okay, I know how to exclude cases with SPSS. Okay, I know. Yeah, it's very possible. You can do it with SPSS as well. So that is it. That is the descriptive analysis. I think we have done quite enough on the descriptive analysis. So now we need to go ahead and do the inferential analysis, so that now we can come up with a conclusion about this particular project we are doing. I don't know if we can still continue because of time. If not possible, then we can maybe start on inferential analysis while we are fresh, and now continue from there. I don't know what's your opinion. If you guys suggest we continue, then we can go and finish inferential analysis. But I'm telling you, it will be quite a lot of work because we do different tests. But most of them is what we have been discussing. So, I don't know. It all depends with you. Are we continuing or we are doing inferential tomorrow? So, because we are in a statistical class and we go with statistics and samples and make a conclusion, those are saying we continue, we have, you just type 1, and those for tomorrow we have 0. So just say it on the chat and I'll able to do the analysis. We will all see. Okay, I can see. Okay, one last. Okay, so we have we are doing it tomorrow. Now, as we are doing it tomorrow, I want you to take time. Just go and redo the descriptive analysis and even think of more that you can add on your own. You see, like exploring the variable, like this, go and do it on a Word document if you want to get it even clearer. Do the analysis, do the writing, come here on your SPSS, copy this chart, paste it on your Word document, write that nice interpretation. You see, I showed you, you just need to copy this chart, go and paste in your Word document. You copy this graph here, go paste it in Word document. Do the interpretation step by step. So by the time we're doing inferential tomorrow, you don't have any doubt on this, descriptive analysis. And if you do, you ask for clarification before we proceed. So unless there is a question, any point that is not clear, so then we will continue tomorrow doing now the inferential analysis, having obtained some suggestions from the descriptive analysis, like the one that is saying the economic status, the low economic status suggests that at some point some are not able to pay their bills. So those are the claims we will be testing tomorrow and making a conclusion. So expect to see independent sample t-test, the other t-tests, the regression, the correlation, and all that. And it is you guys who will be doing the interpretation. So I'm expecting tomorrow's class to be more interactive. I'll be mentioning names, so be prepared.